Okay, so hopefully all is working right. This is recording. I'm just going to double check. Okay, good. So I'm going to share again. Okay, so this webinar this week is engaging students. Uh-oh, what happened here? Let me just get it back up. I lost my whole thing here. What happened? Sorry about that. Give me 1 minute. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, engaging students during synchronized learning using Google Workspace. So we could use other tools, but I'm going to focus more on Google Workspace, which was G Suite for Education, and they changed that to Google Workspace. Okay, so we're going to start by talking about Google Meet, but of course, you could use Zoom for any of these strategies that I'm going to have you go through now anyway. Okay, so we'll talk about a waterfall chat. We're going to talk about breakout rooms, things you could do in breakout rooms, polls, Q&A, one-to-one meetings in small groups. So we're going to kind of focus more on waterfall chat and breakout rooms. Google Meet now has a polls feature, which is great for, an icebreaker, check for understanding. It also has a Q&A where students could pose questions, and when the teacher is done lecturing or whatever they're doing, they can then pull up the Q&A, and it goes in order by how often that question was asked, and it goes to the top of the list, and the students could then, the teacher could then answer the questions. Google Meet is great for one-to-one meetings to connect with your students, maybe extra help, anything like that, as well as some small groups. So let's first talk about a waterfall chat. I just recently learned about a waterfall chat, and it's a great strategy. It's very exciting for students to do it. I've heard great responses from students or from teachers with their students. So basically what happens is you're in a Google Meet or on a Zoom, you pose a question, and then you tell the students to type their response in the chat, but they do not hit send until they're told to do so. So what happens is you have them type it in, they don't hit send, and then I would count down. Okay, when I hit 1, everyone hit send. So count down, 3, 2, 1. Everyone kind of hit send, and you could see, depending on how many students are in your Google Meet or Zoom, obviously the more the waterfall would go through, and it all kind of pops up all at the same time. So the students kind of love seeing this. And what it's nice about is that students don't see other responses and then they respond. So they've already had everything in there, and then they hit send. And then you could take the time to kind of look through the responses and talk about why you responded the way that you did. This is a great strategy for building relationships. So it could be something like a fun, what is your favorite food, or whatever it may be, something fun, no stakes, or it could be for check for understanding. So maybe you're just checking for understanding on a unit that you just went over, or something that you just went over, or math problem, whatever it may be. So great strategy, and the students really do like this. So breakout rooms are great. It's a newer feature for Google Meet, new this year. I think it is available G Suite for Education, but then you get a little added benefits if you're an enterprise for education. So if you don't have it, you need to check with your district what Google Workspace license they have. So we're going to talk about book buddies, a jigsaw, digital jigsaw, four corners debate, strategic small groups, and literature circles. Okay, so book buddies. Book buddies are if you pair students, so then the buddies can read to each other in a breakout room. So you're making a bunch of breakout rooms, depending on how many students you have, and they read to each other in the room. One listens, one speaks. They could go back and forth, however you want to have them work it. And you're kind of popping in and out of the rooms to check for fluency and expression. You could ask questions and informally assess your students for comprehension. Strategy would be to mix up pairs so your kids can get to know each other, especially for those students who are completely remote. They're really not building any relationships or it's harder for them. So this is a great way to pair them and build relationships. So you might be familiar with a traditional jigsaw if we're in a classroom in a non-digital environment. This is more of a digital jigsaw. So the way this works, when you have long text, so maybe they're learning an entire article about different things or a mini unit. So depending on what you're doing, but you don't have a lot of time. So you want them to kind of focus in on one thing and then kind of all come back together. So I'm going to show you what this looks like after I explain the task. So you're going to send your students information prior to doing the jigsaw. So it could be an article, it could be a presentation you created, it could be a website, however you're sending them that information. You're going to ask the students to open up the text, and then you're going to put them in breakout rooms where each room represents one page or maybe one piece of that information. Once they do that, the students are going to be in the breakout room. They're going to read the section together, discuss it, and choose a speaker to summarize what they read to the whole group once the breakout room closes. This can be set up ahead of time, and I'm going to show you what this looks like now, but this could be done in Google Slides, it could be done in Google Drawings, and it could be done in Jamboard. And we're going to talk more about each one of these tools shortly. So let me just click in, show you what this looks like. Okay, so I just kind of did a brief overview. So if I was working with other teachers and I was teaching them blended learning, I might do it in this, using this Google slide presentation. So I have 4 slides. So for in this case, I put them in 4 groups. All of my students would get this one document that anyone can edit. So all your students are in this one document. Group number 1 is going in here. They're going to learn about a station rotation. I could add right in here the article, the link to the article, or a video to watch, whatever it may be. And then whoever's going to be the writer is going to write down what is it, how does it work, and they're going to summarize it. You could have them also write the pros and cons of this model, or you could be specific questions, whatever specific questions you want them to know. Group number 2 is going to learn about lab rotation, again, or whatever your unit asks for. Group number 3 and group number 4. What happens is when they all come together, they now have all their shared notes in one document where everyone has access to everything. So once they go back into the Google Meet or Zoom, they can then have the speaker speak through each one of everything that they learned and share it with the class, but now everyone has the notes to go with that. So that is the jigsaw. So the next is the 4 corners debate. So what you would do in the main room of the Zoom or Google Meet, you're going to share a statement with your students. You're going to tell them to pick a stance, whether they strongly agree, strongly disagree, or just disagree. Give the students time to think and make a choice. They're going to take, and this would be a great thing to do with the waterfall so they can't worry about all their friends are doing to take the stance, but say, okay, at the count of 3, take your stance. So they type in either strongly agree or whatever their stance is, and they hit send. You're then going to place your students into the breakout rooms based on what they chose. Once they're in their rooms, students will develop an argument and choose a group speaker. Maybe you want to have that group speaker kind of choose their point, why they think they want to come back to the main group and talk about. When everyone comes back together, each speaker shares out, and students can type in the chat if they change their minds. Okay, so maybe you can make it more of a game. They have to change other people's minds. So that's the 4 corners debate. And there are templates that I'm going to give you later on in this presentation, as well as going to give you a link to this presentation that you can kind of take these ready-made templates and use it right away in your classroom. So the next is strategic small group, and I'm not going to talk too much about this because it's basically just differentiating instruction by designing tasks in each breakout room. So maybe you have some of your level students that might have more difficult times. You want to give them an easier task. So you put them into a great room based on that. Or you could be pairing your higher level students with your lower level students to kind of work with each other that way. Literacy circles. So kind of like lit circles that you're already familiar with. It gives students an opportunity for choice. You could base your grouping your students by reading level. My suggestion would be to assign specific roles for the students to hold them accountable and to get them more involved, because you will have those students that will sit back and do nothing while other ones do everything. So students can meet in the virtual breakout room. Again, the teacher could be jumping in and out of the breakout rooms to discuss a chapter, maybe that they have read the night before. And this little image here will show you some of the different roles that you could assign them if you wanted to. Okay, so now we're going to kind of get into a little bit more about the Google Workspace tools. Google Slide is probably my favorite of all the Google Workspace tools because it's so flexible. And if you jump on next week's webinar, it's all about Google Slides. So I'm going to kind of talk about it a little bit and how it could be used for engaging your students. And again, I'll probably go in a little deeper into it next week in next week's webinar. Okay, so there are a ton of game-based activities you could do in Google Slides with templates that are already there. Google Slides is a great place to do a talk and turn or a digital talk and turn. It's also a great place to do a live collaborative activities. So what I'm going to do right now is jump out of this presentation, and I'm going to open up, first of all, a link to, this is a Google Slides presentation that was done by a website called Slides Mania. And if you've never went to Slides Mania, you should go, because there are tons of templates for education as well as others, but there are game boards and digital agendas and interactive notebooks. And I'll probably be talking about this more next week, but you could have a board game. So this was already existing. This is a board game. You just literally download the template. It automatically is here for you. So I'm going to kind of present this so you could see what it looks like. I'm going to click on present. And obviously you would put your information in here, whatever you were using to play the game. So this could be live during a Google Meet. This could also be, you know, something that you do in class on your board. So lots of ways to do this. So basically you present your screen. Over here is a video, but when you click on the video, you hit the little video, and what it is the dice rolling. Student stops when they want to stop, and they got their number. So you start at start, you go 1, 2, because they got a 2, they click in, and it's an activity. So the activity could be anything you want to put in here. It could be a video that they watch. It could be an article that they read. It could be a link to something else. So remember, you could link. It could be an image that they look at. It could be a task they have to do. Okay, so whatever they land on, they have to do. And then you click backside, and it brings you the back or the answer to that activity. So this is a generic one. So the way you would go to create this, and I'm going to now jump out of this presentation, is you could see what it looks like in the slides. These are all the slides, again, they're already created, and it kind of walks you through in the directions what you need to do. You could add directions for your students, but then when you click in to each number, you then just click, highlight, and make whatever changes you want to make each activity so it works for your classroom. So that's what a board game looks like. Okay, so we talked about digital talk and turns. Basically, they might have to put their information into something. Instead of just speaking to each other, it's harder for them to do that. Maybe they do it digitally where they're writing something down. And then there's live collaborative activities. So what you might not know about Google Slides is you can watch your students in real time doing their work. So let's say you have a Google slide presentation and you made it where everyone can edit. So you could put it in Google Classroom. Anyone in the classroom can edit. You can assign them each a Google slide that they jump into. If you click on the bottom to this grid down here, you could then see all the different slides. If I had each student in one of these slides, I could then see them working in real time what they're doing, as well as they could see others working in real time. So it's a great way to kind of look and see where they're all at. And then I could, maybe jump on if I'm on a meet, or I could click in and then I could do a chat. So I'm just going to click in. I'm going to go back to this mode and I could click up here and I can make a comment right there and comment to them right from there. So it's a great way to kind of see everybody's working at the same time and comment. And if they know that everybody's doing the work, they're more likely to give a little more effort to it. Okay, so again, Google Slides, I'm going to cover it briefly because I'm going to go into a lot more depth in it next week. Okay, so one of the webinars, which I am not doing, but I would love to do, is Jamboard. If you are not familiar with Jamboard, it is an interactive whiteboard. It is part of Google Workspace apps. It can be used on any device. I'm going to jump in, probably spend a good amount of time talking about it because we are not doing another webinar on it. And it could be used so many ways, especially to engage student in a virtual or in the classroom or in a hybrid environment. So some of the ways you could do it is using it as a graphic organizer. It could be collaborative. So collaborative, just like Google Slides is, share with everyone can jump in at the same time. It could just be a blank whiteboard that you work on. You could have virtual post-it notes as well as templates. So the first thing I'm going to do is show it to you and how to access it. And we'll talk about a couple different ways we could use it. And then I'm going to show you the templates. Again, if you do a Google search, there are a ton of Google Jamboard templates that you can use right away. So the first thing I want to do before I jump into it is explain how it's used on different devices. So again, it can be used on any device. Right now I'm on a laptop, so it's going to look a little bit different on a laptop or on a desktop than it would on an iPad or on a Chromebook where you could write on the Chromebook. Okay, so a little bit different depending on what you're doing it with. In this case, I prefer using it on the iPad because you could do the digital writing and having that ability to write on there is helpful. So you're not going to see it in that way, but I'm going to show you what it looks like. So what I'm going to do is jump into Jamboard. So actually, let me go back. I'm going to start with Google and a blank Google page. To access Jamboard, you're going to go to your waffle over here to the right. If I click on it, you see a bunch of stuff. I could scroll up. If you don't see Jamboard right away, just keep scrolling up. And again, you can move these tiles around. So if you want to move things up, that makes more sense for you, you can do that. This is Jamboard. So you can access it right from here and click on it, and that's going to open up a new Jamboard. Okay, so right now this is showing me all my Jamboards. And then I would click down below here to the plus sign and I could create a new one. But I'm going to jump into one that I already created because I want to show you what it looks like from the iPad point of view as well. So basically it's just a whiteboard presentation. I'm going to kind of move this out of the way. Think about it as a whiteboard, and I'm going to kind of go through the different features of it. And then we'll talk more about how it could be used to engage, and I'll show you the templates. So this looks very similar to what you're looking like with Google Docs or Google Slides or any of the other Google apps. The name is up here. I could click on here. I could rename it to be whatever I want it to be. That will bring me to my homepage. You can have multiple pages within Jamboard, I believe up to 20, where it's more unlimited with Google Slides. So we're going to kind of talk about the difference So Google Slides, you could have many, many different slides within a Google Slide presentation. Here you can have up to 20. So if you want to give each one of your students its own page, his or her own page, you can only have 20. So I want to keep that in mind. This is how you access. I could add a new page by clicking on the plus. You could see it went 2 to 2. I could also click on here where I could then see my different pages. If I click on the 3 dots, I could duplicate that page if I had information on there, or I can delete it. Okay. So, and then I could just hit that arrow up to get rid of that. Up here on the top are 3 dots, which we know always means more. I could rename. I could download the page as a PDF. So this would be useful if I created a graphic organizer. Now I want to download the image and send that out to my students. I could save the frame as an image. So this one frame, this one slide as an image. I could remove it. I can make a copy of the entire Jamboard. Okay, so those are my options in here. Share is similar to sharing in Google Slides or Google Docs. Who am I making, who am I giving permissions to? So again, change to anyone with a link. I could click there. Now, what do they have the ability to do? Do they just have the ability to view? Or I could click and say, okay, everyone has the ability to jump in and edit. So I'm going to hit done. Okay, so again, this could just be you doing this, presenting it to your class. You don't want them to do anything with it. This could be more collaborative where you have your students in here working on it. This could be something that you do for 4 corners that we discussed, or literacy circles, talk and turns. So this could be used for many different things. Okay, so that's a top bar. Over here, we have undo and redo. We could also zoom in by clicking on the zoom. I could zoom in and out. I could set a background. So if this is getting used for math, I could put chart paper in. I could also make it a color. There's some limits. You don't have unlimited colors and everything else, but I could do this blue background. I could set a black background, but you could also upload an image. So I could upload an image, maybe with a Google search. Let's say I want to put a map. Let's see. Well, we'll just choose this one. Set as frame background. I now added this. This is not very clear, but I now added this as the background. And maybe what you do is you have the students go in and they have to write the different states or the capitals. Okay, so just a few different ways to kind of make this a little more engaging. Or I could do this once on this slide and then duplicate this slide, and each student then has to do whatever they need to do with the image. So I'm just going to take this image out for now, and I'm going to go back and clear my frame to a white background. Okay. So let's look at the tools over here to the left, because that's kind of where all the things happen. So up on the top, I have a pen. I click on it. I have different pen thickness, a marker, paintbrush, different colors. So I could say, okay, I'm going to do with a marker. I'm going to give it a color. And then I have the ability to write and draw. So you could be doing Jamboard live in a Meet or a Zoom, presenting your screen, and they see what you're writing in real time. Additionally, if you're in a Google Meet, you can actually open up a Jamboard and share it with your whoever is in your Google Meet, all in one shot, right from within Google Meet. Okay, so that is your pen tool. I now have an eraser tool that I could kind of use eraser, basically where I can erase everything, or I could just use the undo to get rid of it. Nope, I'm going to redo back to the white. Okay, so this is your pointer tool. If I had anything in here, I could click and drag in it things around. I can move things. I can make it bigger. This is Post-it notes. So there's a lot you could do with Post-it notes. So if you click on the Post-it note, you could change the color. And then I could start typing. Maybe I'm going to put my name on here, and you could have your students put your name and hit save. And now I have a little Post-it note. Okay, I'm going to cancel it out. My Post-it note can be made bigger. I can move things around. I can turn it. And so I have a few options. I could edit it. I could duplicate it or delete it. Okay, you could also put it in different order. Okay, so post-it notes, you could think of a lot of things. Maybe almost think of this as a collaborative board where you pose a question and you have each student who is now in here because you shared, made it editable for all. They all pick a different post-it note and they answer the question or they put their name. So almost like if you're familiar with Padlet, something similar to that. Okay, so that's a Padlet. Now there is image. So again, I could add an image in here. So similar to what I did before, but it wouldn't be a background. So let's say we'll just do a telescope. I put the telescope in there and I hit insert and I bring it in. Again, it's not my background. It's just an image that I can now move around. I can make bigger. Okay, similar to the other. So I have some options. All right, so that is the image. Then back in here, we have where you have different shapes. So if I click on here, I have a circle, I have a square, triangle. I click on here, I could then make it a little more interactive. I can kind of move things around, change circles, things like that. Newer feature, if you already knew about Jamboard, is a text. So I could click and then I could type, maybe I was posing a question and I could type my question here. And I can make it bigger, move it around. So you have a lot of flexibility. Again, just think of it as a blank canvas that you could do whatever you want with. Okay, so here on the bottom, and now I'm on the desktop version or a laptop version, is a laser pointer. So maybe now I'm showing something and it's kind of like a disappearing pen that I could do things with. So right now, and I think it might have disappeared on me, so I'm gonna zoom out. Let's see, I think I lost my little image, so I'm gonna try to find it again so I could show you, zoom back in. So I took a picture of what it looks like if you were on a iPad or a Chromebook that you can write on. So I just took a picture of it and added. So it looks a little bit different and I wanted to show you because you have some more capabilities. So I'm just going to draw this bigger so hopefully you could see it on your end. Okay, so what would happen at the bottom of the toolbar over here, down here, you'll have 3 dots where you have more options. The sticky note is down there as well as the images, which you already just saw. But you also have the ability to add drive content. So you could bring in a Google slide presentation, a Google Doc. So you could bring in these actual documents. So what I've done is I brought in a Google slide presentation. I could then pull out the slide, a single slide, blow it up big and have the ability to annotate on it. So there's lots of possibilities of what you could do with that. You could also open up the camera and take a picture. So maybe you're having, maybe you have a worksheet, a paper worksheet that you want your students to complete. You could click from your iPad or of your Chromebook, click on camera, take a picture of that worksheet, bring it in, and now you have a worksheet that's digital that the students can work and complete. Or maybe the students are completing this and they're going to take a picture of their work and they're going to upload it into this Jamboard. And the last is an image library where you could bring in some images. So a little more capabilities on the iPad or the Chromebook. And it's also much easier if you're actually writing with a stylus or with your finger, which you don't, it's much more difficult with a mouse. Okay. So going back, so we kind of got an overview what Jamboard is, and there's a ton of resources out there for you. So just reach out, or you could go to support@jamboard.com, get a lot of information. Here are some templates. Again, I'm going to share this link with you. If you click on the link, here is a Wakelet collection. If you don't know Wakelet, it's just kind of a place to curate all your information. Might take a second to open up. And here are a ton of Jamboard templates that you can use in your classroom. Again, and there's more. There's websites out there. If you Google Jamboard templates, you'll get a ton of them. So let me just kind of look through some of them. Here is a story plot jam. This would be great for a timeline, thinking routines, grow and glow, quick write, Jamboard images. Here's your morning meeting, memory game. So these are all existing. You don't have to recreate anything. You just click in it. Here's some mathematics with the base 10 model. Then now you could click and draw and model this. And if you have students that are remote as well as in class, you could have this on the smart board, be presenting on your smart board, and be able to kind of have a manipulative that you and your students can move around. Okay, so there's a ton of stuff in here. So hopefully you can find stuff that works for your grade level and your subject area. Okay, moving on, Google Drawings. So Google Drawings is another one of the lesser known or used features of Google Workspace. It is similar to Jamboard and Google Slides. I don't know, better or worse, depending on what you're doing, but I'm going to jump in and show you what that looks like as well. This will also be used for a talk and turn. Lots of great graphic organizers, and I'm giving you a link to a bunch of different templates that you can use. This is a great collaborative white space, similar to Jamboard. And also a great place for some visual note taking. So maybe you want to do some mind map, something like that. So let's kind of jump in and take a look what that looks like. So to access drawings, you can go to drawings.google.com. And I didn't mention this with Jamboard, same thing, jamboard.google.com. If you just type that in there, it will bring you in there. You could also access it from the waffle, clicking on the waffle, scrolling down and finding it, but I'll kind of show it to you this way, drawings.google.com. Or you could go to drawings.new. There's like 5 ways to access it. So this will bring me to a blank Google drawing. So you want to think a little bit differently with Google Drawings because it's a single page. Where Google Slides, you could have many different slides within the file. And in Jamboard, you could have 20. This is just one open space for you to kind of have a blank slate with. Looks a little bit different than drawings, but some of the functions are the same, some of them are not. So let's kind of take a look at this and I will show it to you. Again, you would name the drawing just like you would any other Google Drawing file. Undo, redo. You can print anything. You could zoom in. This is a select tool. So once you start bringing images, you can move you can move whatever images or text around. You have lines. If you click on lines, you have some options. You have a line, arrow. This is great if you were doing some type of a graphing for science or another subject. A curve connector, curve, polyline, but there's also a scribble. This works really nicely if you're, again, on a Chromebook that you have the ability to write, or on the iPad. There is not an iPad app for Google Drawings, but you can access it through the browser. Okay, so open up your browser, go to drawings.google.com, and then you have this ability. So right now I'm in drawing and I'm using my mouth, so it's not great, but I have the ability to draw. Okay. Okay, so that's my drawing. Once I click on the line, I have some options to change things, move this around. I could then access my point tool and I can now make things smaller and larger. I can get rid of it. I could move it around on the board and do whatever I need to do. It's a little more awkward doing it with my mouse using the scribble. I could format this, okay? So similar to some of the other formatting, like in Google Slides, I can add text, I could indent, line spacing, the formatting. You have a little more options as far as connecting lines than you would. You could add images. So I'm just gonna hit array, format. I could add images, things like that. I have tools. I could use the Explore, which I'll probably talk more about when we do Google Slides next week, but that gives you a lot of options. If you click on Explore, move this out of the way. I could type something in here like, again, we'll just go with a telescope. It'll bring up articles. It could bring up images or something in my drive that says telescope. So again, I could click on images. I could bring it on over. It's going to bring it in. And note that anything that you bring in through the Explorer, any images, is Creative Commons, so it's free to use. You don't have to worry about that you're taking other people's work that you don't need. So I have the ability now to crop this image, make it as a background, annotate over it. So I have some abilities with that. Okay, so let's kind of look up here a little bit. I can share this. So again, with the share, I could click on share, the same as slides, docs, Jamboard. Am I giving other people editing rights? Or is it just something for them to view? This is another way to have a digital whiteboard. Everyone jumps in and edit, and everyone could start writing and editing on here. Okay, but everyone is now on one canvas. Okay, we can't have multiple canvases. Word art is kind of cool. We'll kind of look at that a little bit. I'm just going to show you the things that kind of make it a little bit different than some of the other Google apps. Most of these are the same. What's nice about here is I could download this as an image, a PDF, a JPEG or a PNG. And just so you know the difference, JPEG tends to be more photos, and a PNG is more like a clip art, images like that. Let's see, you could go into version history of it just like you can on Google Slides or Google Docs. I could move it to another file in my Google Drive, and I could also add the shortcut. So most of these are the same. What I do want you to see is page setup. So you have the ability here to change the setup. So I could click on here and you could have it your standard sizes. But if you go in custom, you could use Google Drawings to make a banner for a Google Classroom header, or make it for maybe you're designing a logo or an image. So you could design whatever you want. Some people use Canva. There's other drawing tools out there, but you can make it whatever custom size you need it to be, and then import that into some of your other Google apps. Okay, so a lot of people like to make headers in Google Classroom, and I can't remember off the size offhand what pixels it needs to be, 1040 by something. You would just change it, put it in, change it to pixels. Now that image, the canvas size is the exact size that you could design it, save it as a PNG, and then upload it into Google Classroom or upload it as a banner in Google Sites. Okay, so that's pretty much there, and you have print settings. Editing is pretty much standard than what you're used to with the other apps. There are some more guides and snap to guides because you're drawing in their view. Insert, you have the ability to add images. You could use a camera. So right now I could use my camera feature. I could take a picture just like I could in Jamboard and bring that picture right in. I could use my photos. So if I have photos in Google Photos, I could bring it right in. So maybe you want to make some kind of a collage of photos. This would be a great place to do it. And I could also go into Drive and bring things up from my Drive. Text box, shape, same thing as what we talked about before. There's call outs, equations. You can add a table in here. You can chart, diagrams. Word art's kind of cool because you could kind of give it a little more of, just going to use Google Drawings and then hit enter, and I could take drawings and I could kind of change the shape and give it a little more of design, turn it upside down. So you have a lot of more fun options with word art. Again, there's line. I could add links. So if I want to link this to another website or to another Google Doc or to Google Slide, I could add links right here. And I could also comment just like I can comment in Slides and Docs. These are different ways that you can format. I could format text. I could fill different colors. I could add different borders, lines, and I have more format options by clicking in here. Over here, drop shadow, things like that. Arranging is ranging in the order because you could kind of use this as layers. You could put things behind and in front. This is how you would maneuver that. Order, center on page, rotate, as well as some other tools. Again, we looked at the Explore. You could add a dictionary. There's some accessibility settings. So that's kind of a brief overview of Google Drawings, although there's a ton of stuff out there. So if you click on the link to the graphic organizer, it's going to bring you to this blog by Ditch That Textbook, who I go to all the time. He has tons of great stuff out there. This one I would particularly liked for this. It's 25 free Google Drawing graphic organizers and how to make your own. So I just wanted to show you some of the different ones that are in here. There's a Venn diagram. Again, all you have to do is click. It's going to bring it right in. It's going to save it right into your Google Drive, and you can customize it however works for your classroom. Here's a KWL chart, a timeline, an evaluation. Let students identify criteria, explain whether it's successful. So some of these you might not even be aware of, but would be great to use in your classroom. Cause and effect chain, fishbone planner, word web semantic map, flow charts, hexagon thinking. Here's a character map. This would be great for literacy circles. Cornell note taking, plot diagram. And you can edit this. So you're not stuck to this one. So maybe pieces of it you like, you could just take the piece of it you want, edit it how it works for you. Vocabulary cluster. Concept map, thinking about your thinking, a Freyer model. So just kind of see all the different options, essay pre-write, audio podcast summary. I love podcasts. Maybe have your students watch a podcast and now they have somewhere where they jot all their notes down. Paint chip vocabulary, and kind of talks a little bit about it. Sequencing, then and now. So ton of stuff in here. And there's a ton more out there other than that, but I wanted to kind of open you up to just different ideas that you might not be thinking about. Okay, visual note taking, that wasn't in there either. So, okay, let's move on. Google Drawings. Now let's go to Google Sheets. I don't often talk about Google Sheets because it's not my forte. It's probably one of the ones I know the least out of all of them. I do use Google Sheets most often because I use Google Forms all the time. And we know when we collect information from Google Forms, we could automatically create a Google Sheet to collect all our data. But it can be used for other things. So I'm going to show you some different ideas I have for game-based learning using Google Sheets. So I'm going to click on this link. And it's going to bring me to a website called Flippity, and it's flippity.net. In Flippity, there are a ton of templates in here that are created in Google Sheets that are different games. These are games that students could play on their own, like a flashcards, or it could be a game show that you're doing during a Google Meet or a Zoom session live in class. So once you see which one you want, again, you could see there are a ton of them out here. I get rave reviews. Here's a Flippity tournament bracket, would be a great way with Super Bowl coming up. Flippity fun with words. I'm just going to kind of click into one of them. Here's another board game. Again, instead of using Google Slides, you'd be using Google Sheets. All right, so let's just do the Flippity game quiz show. So if I hover over it, I could see a demo of what it looks like. So this is kind of what it looks like. And you could click, you could put them into teams, you click in it, and it opens up with a name. And maybe they answer the question. I can't really see, this is all up here. And they answer the question, and and then they click on it again to get the answer. So I'm going to kind of jump out of here right now so I can show you the rest of it. Okay, so and hopefully it's kind of small that you can see it on your screen. So that's to see what it looks like. Click here, it gives you the instructions. So there's your instructions on how to create this and what to do with it. And then you click on here to download the template. Again, there are a ton of stuff out here, scavenger hunts, there are timelines, there's bingo, so ton of stuff on here. Some of the stuff can be done live and some of the stuff might be something you just send out to your students to do self-paced. Okay, one other thing I wanted to show you is you could use Google Sheets to kind of build community. We know it's really hard to build relationships, especially for those students. No, that's not in here. Okay, it's not in here. Let's see. it was a Google Sheet. I'm going to see if I could quickly find it. I thought I put it up, but I didn't. Here we go. Okay, so this is community building. So I'm going to present this to kind of show it to you what it looks like a little bit bigger. And then in here is also a template for you to take it yourself. So what this is, it's a Google Sheet. You could give everyone access to edit this Google Sheet. The student would then take a line, they put their name in, they put their position. In this case, it was done as a teacher, but it could be whatever you want them to say, maybe what period they're in. And then they have which emoji describes your day the best or the mood your best. And then up here, this one says 2 words that you would use to describe the word blended learning. So this could be a question to check for understanding, but it could be, asking any type of a question and rate your comfort level. So this was kind of how this one was done, but I want to click in and show you what the template looks like in Google Sheets. And again, customize it to based on what you want it to do. So it's a Google Sheet template. In here, it's a name. Here is my school that I work for, the hometown, which emoji best describes it. So what I did is we have a drop down arrow and there are a ton of different emojis in here. So the person doesn't even know to have to go out and copy an emoji from somewhere else and paste it in. They just pick one and to show their mood. And then this last section would be, what is one thing that you learned today? Or are you having difficulty, whatever it may be. So you could use this to build relationships. And what's nice about this is all the other students that are in here have the ability to kind of connect with other students and see what they're up to. All right. I think that is the end of the presentation. So I kind of went through a lot of different tools with you. We went through Google Meet, we went through Google Slides, we went through Google Drawings, Jamboard, and Google Sheets. Hopefully I covered everything. Next Tuesday, I'm going to dig deeper into Google Slides, which is probably my all-time favorite because there's just so much you can do with it in the classroom. So what I'm going to do right now is just stop sharing my screen. And I'm going to stop the recording.